everyone. Happy Friday. We made it. 5 whole days and it feels like it's been 3 months, right? How about you guys? For me, it feels much longer. Hopefully you got through your Friday, day 5 work. I hope that you're excited for 2 days off for the weekend. Survived those thunderstorms that we went through yesterday and last night. And are ready for a good story for your Friday night. And get ready for the weekend where you can hang out, relax, have fun. If you got behind on your work in the week, you can feel free to catch up. No worries. If you want to work ahead, you've got work to work ahead. Whatever works best for you, keeps you calm, keeps you on the right track. So let's continue with our Despero. I did not put a bookmark. I say that every book, don't I? I don't have a bookmark. And since you guys aren't here, you can't help me with this either. So yesterday we stopped after this drum, right? So the dad got the drum, and he's calling the Mouse Council on his own son. I just can't believe that. So we're on chapter 7, A Mouse in Love. Despero ridiculously fell in love with Princess P, and we're going to see what happens. And what was our own favorite member of the mouse community doing while the sound of the Mouse Council drum echoed through the walls of the castle? Reader, I must report that Furlough had not seen the worst of it. Despero sat with the princess and the king and listened to song after song. At one point, gently, oh so gently, the pea picked up the mouse in her hand. She cupped him in her palm and scratched his oversized ears. You have lovely ears, the pea said to him. They are like small pieces of velvet. Despero thought that he might faint with the pleasure of someone referring to his ears as small and lovely. He laid his tail against the pea's wrist to steady himself, and he felt the princess's pulse, the pounding of her heart, and his own heart immediately took up the rhythm of hers. Papa, said the pea when the music was over, I'm going to keep this mouse. We're going to be great friends. The king looked at Despero cupped in his daughter's hands. He narrowed his eyes. A mouse, he muttered. A rodent. What? Said the pea. Put it down, the king commanded. No, said the pea, who was a person not at all used to being told what to do. I mean, why should I? Because I told you to. But why? Protested the pea. Because it's a mouse. I know. I'm the one who told you he was a mouse. Remember the king thought he was a bug? I wasn't thinking, said the king. Thinking of what? Your mother, the queen. My mother, said the pea sadly. Mice are rodents, said the king. He adjusted his crown. They are related to rats. You know how we feel about rats. You know of our own dark history with rats. The pea shuddered. But Papa, she said, he's not a rat. He's a mouse. There's a difference. Royalty, the king said, has many responsibilities, and one of them is not becoming involved personally with even the distant relatives of one's enemies. Put him down, Pea. The princess put Despero down. Good girl, said the king, and then he looked at Despero. Scat, he said. Despero, however, did not scat. He sat and stared up at the princess. The king stamped his foot. Scat, he shouted. Papa, said the princess, please, don't be mean to him, and she began to weep. Despero, seeing her tears, broke the last of the great ancient rules of mice. He spoke to a human. Please, said Despero, don't cry. He held out his handkerchief to the princess. The pea sniffed and leaned down close to him. Do not speak to her, thundered the king. Despero dropped his handkerchief. He backed away from the king. Rodents do not speak to princesses. We will not have this becoming a topsy-turvy, wrong-headed world. There are rules. Scat! Get lost before my common sense returns, and I have you killed. The king stamped his foot again. Despero found it alarming to have such a big foot brought down with so much force and anger so close to his own small head. He ran toward the hole in the wall. But he turned before he entered it. He turned and shouted to the princess. My name is Despero. Despero, she said. I honor you, shouted Despero. I honor you was what the knight said to the fair maiden in the story that Despero read every day in the book in the library. Despero had muttered the phrase often to himself, but he had never before this evening had the occasion to use it when speaking to someone else. "Get out of here!" shouted the king, stamping his foot harder and then harder still, so it seemed as if the whole castle, the very world, were shaking. "Rodents know nothing of honor!" Despero ran into the hole, and from there he looked out at the princess. She had picked up his handkerchief, and she was looking at him, right directly into his soul. "Despero," she said. He saw his name on her lips. "I honor you," whispered Despero. I love this part so much. "I honor you," whispered Despero. "I honor you." He put his paw over his heart. He bowed so low that his whiskers touched the floor. He was, alas, a mouse deeply in love. I'm going to use that from now on with everybody. I honor you. I honor you. Chapter 8, To the Rats. The Mouse Council, 13 honored mice and one most very honored head mouse, heeded the call of Leicester's drum and gathered in a small secret hole off King Philip's throne room. The 14 mice sat around a piece of wood, balanced on spools of thread, and listened in horror while Despero's father related the story of what Furlough had seen. "At the foot of the king," said Leicester. "Her finger right on top of his head," said Leicester. "He was looking up at her, and it was not in fear." The Mouse Council members listened with their mouths open. They listened with their whiskers drooping and their ears flat against their heads. They listened in dismay and outrage and fear. When Leicester finished, there was a silence, dismal and deep. "Something," intoned the most very honored head mouse. Those are all in capital letters, so we know that he's very important. "Something," intoned the most very honored head mouse, "is wrong with your son. He is not well. This goes beyond his fevers, beyond his large ears and his lack of growth. He is deeply disturbed. His behavior endangers us all. Humans cannot be trusted. We know this to be an indisputable fact. A mouse who consorts with humans, a mouse who would sit right at the foot of a man, a mouse who would allow a human to touch him." And here the entire Mouse Council indulged in a collective shiver of disgust. "Cannot be trusted. That is the way of the world, our world. Fellow mice, it is my most fervent hope that Despero has not spoken to these humans. But obviously, we can assume nothing. And this is a time to act, not wonder." Leicester nodded his head in agreement. And the 12 other members of the Mouse Council nodded their heads too. "We have no choice," said the head mouse. "He must go to the dungeon." He pounded his fisted paw on the table. "He must go to the rats. Immediately. Members of the council, I will now ask you to vote. Those in favor of Despero being sent to the dungeon, say aye." There was a chorus of sad ayes. "Those opposed, say nay." Silence reigned the room. The only noise came from Leicester. He was crying. And 13 mice, ashamed for Leicester, looked away. Reader, can you imagine your own father not voting against your being sent to a dungeon full of rats? Can you imagine him not saying one word in your defense? To be fair, let's keep in mind that the dad is the one who called the Mouse Council. So no, I'm not surprised because he called this meeting. Despero's father wept, and the most very honored head mouse beat his paw against the table again and said, "Despero Tilling will appear before the mouse community. He will hear of his sins. He will be given a chance to deny them. If he does not deny them, he will be allowed to renounce them so that he may go to the dungeon with a pure heart. Despero Tilling is hereby called to sit with the Mouse Council." At least Leicester had the decency to weep at his act of perfidy. 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 I'm going to write that down and look that up. I've never heard that word before. Reader, do you know what perfidy means? Here we go. I had a feeling you do, based on the little scene that has just unfolded here, but you should look up the word in your dictionary just to be sure. Okay, so we're going to all look up perfidy, Perfidy, and we'll get back to it tomorrow. Remind me not to forget. So at least Leicester had the decency to weep at his act of perfidy. I bet that it means like his betrayal. I'm guessing it's betrayal because I mean, his son did those things, but he's the one who called him out. Ironically, he ratted him out. Literally, do you get the joke, guys? He ratted him out, and now he's going to the dungeon with the rats. Chapter 9. The Right Question. The Mouse Council sent Furlough to collect Despero, and Furlough found his brother in the library, standing on top of the great open book, his tail wrapped tightly around his feet, his small body shivering. Despero was reading the story out loud to himself. He was reading from the beginning so that he could get to the end, where the reader was assured that the knight and the fair maiden lived happily ever after. Despero wanted to read those words. Happily ever after. He needed to say them out loud. He needed some assurance that this feeling he had for the Princess P, this love, would come to a good end. And so he was reading the story as if it were a spell, and the words of it, spoken aloud, could make magic happen. See here, said Furlough out loud to himself. He looked at his brother and then looked away. This is just the kind of thing I'm talking about. This is exactly the kind of thing. What's he doing here, for cripe's sake? He's not eating the paper. He's talking to the paper. It's wrong. Wrong, wrong. Hey, he said to Despero. Despero kept reading. Hey, shouted Furlough. Despero! The Mouse Council wants you. Pardon, said Despero. He looked up from the book. The Mouse Council has called you to sit with them. Me? Said Despero. You? I'm busy right now, said Despero, and he bent his head again to open the book. I'm busy, no thank you. Furlough sighed. Geez, he said. Cripes, nothing makes sense to this guy. Nothing. I was right to turn him in. He's sick. Furlough crawled up the chair leg and then hopped onto the book. He sat next to Despero. He tapped him on the head once and twice. Hey, he said, the Mouse Council isn't asking. They're telling. They're commanding. You have to come with me right now. Despero turned to Furlough. Do you know what love is? He said. Huh? Love? Furlough shook his head. You're asking the wrong question, he said. The question you should be asking is why the Mouse Council wants to see you. There is somebody who loves me, said Despero, and I love her, and that is the only thing that matters to me. Somebody who loves you? Somebody who you love? What difference does that make? What matters is that you're in a lot of trouble with the Mouse Council. Her name, said Despero, is P. What? The person who loves me. Her name is P. Cripes, said Furlough. You're missing the whole point of everything here. You're missing the point of being a mouse. You're missing the point of being called to sit with the Mouse Council. You've got to come with me. It's the law. You've been called. Despero sighed. He reached out and touched the words fair maiden in the book. He traced them with one paw, and then he put his paw to his mouth. Cripes, said Furlough. You're making a fool of yourself. Let's go. I honor you, whispered Despero. I honor you. And then, reader, he followed Furlough over the book and down the chair leg and across the library floor to the waiting Mouse Council. He allowed his brother to lead him to his fate. Chapter 10, Good Reasons. Oh, we're not going to have time to finish it today. It's too long, and we only have 1 minute left. I guess we'll pause here. Chapter 10, Good Reasons. All right, we'll pause there, and we'll finish Chapter 10 and continue tomorrow. I didn't have my women in science or women in sports yet, so that'll be a separate video. So if you really want to hear about that, I'll put it on the blog underneath this video. So good night. I'm off to take out my earrings and brush my teeth and get ready for bed. And I will see you guys on Monday. I will not be doing any bedtime stories on Saturday or Sunday just because it is a weekend and I hope to clean my apartment and it's not a school day. So we'll save those for school days while we're home. All right, guys, have a good weekend. I'll see you Monday.